depending on where you're wanting to go with this business owner journey that you've decided to take, there's a lot of hills and a lot of valleys that we'll encounter. And in this conversation with Jeffery Hayzlett, the CEO of C-Suites, I really got an opportunity to pick his brain on what does that journey look like now that you've reached this really high level that a lot of business owners aspire to be. Let's take it back to the good old days, as to when you were running the business solo, and what were some of those lessons that you had learned? What were some of the strategies that you took and that you still continue to take? There is a ton of value packed in this episode with Jeffery Hayzlett, and I just know you're going to love what he has to say. Jeffery Hayzlett from C-Suites. It is a pleasure to finally get a chance to connect with you. You and I have been circling around each other's environment for some years now, and it's really our first time to sit and get to know each other for a little bit, and I'm excited, glad that you had the time to meet with us today. And I'm looking forward to what you have to say on the upcoming forum about how to think like a high-level CEO. But before we get into that content, why don't you tell me about your background? How did you get connected into C-Suites? Where did it come from? Who are you?
Well, like most people, I started just as a startup, like any other company. You know, I did many years ago. And of course, I did political work for many years, running campaigns, then running my own PR company. It led me to buy a printing company, led me to buy a cell phone company, led me to buy another company. Pretty soon I'd bought and sold over 250 companies in my career, about 25 billion in transactions. And during that process led me to become the chief marketing officer of a Fortune 100 company. And then left that, went to, go on and do my own television show on Bloomberg. Of course, I'd done a television show on NBC. I was a celebrity judge with, then the Donald Trump, now president, of course. And, then that led me to, as a result of doing the show on Bloomberg, it was called The C-Suite with Jeffery Hayzlett, led me to start, my own OTT company, which is what's called over-the-top television, of creating C-Suite TV and the C-Suite network, now C-Suite podcast, C-Suite radio, we're the world's largest business podcast, So all of that experience, but started just as a founder of a company, just like everybody else.
Did you want to be an owner of a company? Or is this something you decided to do?
Well, I always want to run everything, right? Like a lot of people, like a lot of entrepreneurs, I want to run the things I think I can do the best things at. And that, of course, means running the company. Although, at Kodak, I didn't run the company. I was the chief marketing officer. But even as a CMO, I was managing a $17 billion marketing budget. At the time, 187 billion in total gross revenue. So that's with a B, so fairly large, Although it's kind of interesting, we talk about being a CEO and CMO or whatever, just thinking like a high-level officer. Mm-hmm. And people would say, Jeff, how do you, oh my gosh, billions of dollars, how'd you deal with that? And I said, I just took the zeros off. If it made good sense, I'm from South Dakota, which for most people is a flyover state, but that's where I'm from. There are more people in the stands of the Indianapolis 500 the day of the race than in my entire state at any given time. And with this whole COVID thing, everybody's talking about social distancing. We've been practicing that since 1889, so from my perspective. So, when I would sit in those big boardrooms and big decisions were having to be made, people would say, well, how do you do that? And I said, I just take the zeros off. If it was a good decision in Main Street of Sioux Falls, it's a good decision on Main Street of Wall Street. And that's really how I typically look at things, is the fundamental strategic questions that you're trying to solve. And if you're focused on those, what pain are we solving? What key things do we have? Is it inside of our values? Well, then it's a pretty easy decision, not always, I say easy, it's easier. Some of the decisions you have to make as a leader, they're tough, very tough decisions. I've had to lay off 8,500 people at one time. That was a pretty tough go back in 2008, but that's what real leaders do. Real leaders got to do what you got to do in order to save the things you got to save. Like all of us right now with COVID and us opening back for businesses, you're going to have to make some tough decisions. You're going to run your business, differently, than you've been running it in the past. It doesn't mean it's good or better. It just means that's what it is. And whatever that new normal is what we're going to be facing.
There's some common threads with this journey of your career. I'm hearing some common threads, but I'm also hearing some drastic kind of contrast to one profession to the next. How did you adopt in this shift of being in one particular seat or lane, if you will, and then moving drastically into a different lane?
Well, it doesn't make a difference whether it's a box of soap, a cure for disease, a political candidate, or a product. It's all in the way you package it. So if you look at it from the domain knowledge of what you have, if you think about great entrepreneurs, and I invest in a lot of companies, we have an investment fund in our C-suite network as well. And when we look at investing, we don't always look at the product or service. You know what we look at mostly? The person, the team. Because we know if you've got a good team, you got good people, no matter what you put in there, something good's going to come about. That's why you see, like many of your CEOs in the CEO space who do well at this company and then go to this company and go to this company. Why? Because they're good. They're really good. And it doesn't make a difference always what they sell. It's better if you got a great product without question, or a good service, and you're solving a great need. But can a good talent make do with bad products? Yeah, I've seen it all the time. You see it all, every day, and you see it in Wall Street. The problem is when you got bad talent and bad products. Ooh, that's not a good thing. So I look at it from dramatic kind of thing. Well, there's some people I could see them say that all the time. I look at it as a change, adapt, or die mentality. And when you get into a business, that's what you should be looking. The second you get it right, you should be breaking it to get it right again and again and again. How much better can it be? So I think the constant thing that we have to have is, and I've been speaking about this for now gone on 10 years, is how do you change, adapt, or die? And with that is this, right now, for a lot of people, it's like fail fast, fail fast. Well, that's bullshit. How about win fast? You're going to fail. And I've failed a million times. And maybe even in September in this interview, you would say, hey, Jeff, what's the biggest failure you've ever had? I would say, I don't know. Haven't done it yet, which means I've already done some big, bad, stupid things, right? And I'm going to make some big, bad, stupid things in the future. Hopefully, because I'm learning, I'm pushing. I want to, push that as far as I possibly can. Now, the key thing is we got to remember in most of stuff that what we do, no one's going to die. There's a lot of worse things out there in life than what we do in business. But when it comes to the business side of things, what we do every day as CEOs, we're not making life to death decisions. So, okay, to put that in perspective, then what we can do is improve the things we can and get to where we want to go. But we're going to have to take some risks to do it. And you're going to fail. You're going to fail.
Well, let's continue down that vein with the drastic changes. You had mentioned a lot of companies like ourselves, we're having to make incredibly large changes,
right?
Huge, drastic changes on our entire business model. What advice or can you lend somebody who's facing this for the very first time? Maybe they're kind of new to business. They do have a small team and they know that they need to make a change. Let me kind of give you a little bit of background on the question before you answer that. In talking with a handful of our members and some people who are struggling with this pivot that they need to make, we're finding that it falls back on mindset. What are they thinking? How do they perceive this particular situation that they're facing? But those that are really thriving, that they're excited about this, they find this is a wonderful opportunity, the mindset is drastically different. So we know that that's a component and an element to the equation. Outside of that, what other advice or perspectives can you offer somebody who they know they need to make a drastic change, but they're afraid to?
Well, let's control the things we can control. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a nurse. I can't even sew a mask right now. I don't even know how to do that. But I'm a business first responder. What I can do is help businesses. I can serve in that mentality of saying, I am not going to be a victim. I'm going to help other people. And by doing that, it becomes a mindset issue. And that's what it is for most of us. We can sit back and lament, oh, I'm not traveling enough. I'm never going to make my 1K again. Or I'm going to sit on the couch and eat bonbons. Or we can get off our rear ends and make it happen. So is it you want to be a victim in this process, which I understand there are going to be a number of them. But let's mitigate those who are being victim as much as possible. Even if you own a restaurant, it's tough. Like, let's take restaurants, for example. you've got a tough job because they've shut you down. And now not only that, they say you can only fill at half or a third of your capacity. Well, how do you retool yourself and turn crisis into opportunities and say, I'm going to now start serving food that travels well. I'm going to start putting meal packages together. I'm going to put family meal packages together, and I'm going to get rid of all my retail space, and I'm going to move over here, and I'm going to make it all out, all takeout or all delivery. Well, that's a different mindset than thinking about, oh my gosh, how am I going to make the rent payment? What's going to happen? What am I going to do with all these? I mean, we can go through all that. By the way, we all feel that way. All right. You did that. I did that. And then we figured out, September, that days are weeks, weeks are months, months are years. And what would have happened in our change of a year or months, we've got to do in either weeks or months now. I recently saw a cartoon by, I can't even remember who it was, but it was a cartoon that showed these people in a skyscraper in their corner office, and they're going, I don't think we need a digital strategy. That's years away. And then there's this big wrecking ball called COVID-19 about to smash into the building. Well, that's indeed what happened to a lot of us in this situation. Is we're thinking, I'm just tooling along fine. My model's great. And then this big, huge wrecking ball comes. Whether it be COVID or competitor, customer behavior, or new technology, there's lots of things that can deliver those things. And you can sit back and say, I'm a victim. Oh my gosh, woe is me. Or I can say, bring it on, baby. Let's get into this. I'm going to drive and thrive. I'm not going to survive. I am going to drive and thrive. And it really becomes a mindset issue for most people. And I think that separates us, first of all. And I say this as a business, first responder. I think a lot of entrepreneurs are those business first responders. I think as an executive of a company, you have to have that mentality. No matter what's swirling around over here, you've got to get focused on what's my promises to the company, what's my promises to shareholders, my investors, to my customers, to my suppliers and my community, and then living inside my values. What am I going to do to not be a victim in this process?
All right. Have you always been this cool and collective?
Yeah, pretty much. I'm scared, just like a lot of people do. But, somebody said to me a long time ago, I was leading a group of big celebrities. There was a kind of a mastermind of all these big, huge celebrities because, I came out of Kodak and immediately we built a brand of Jeff Hayzlett, this celebrity CMO cowboy kind of thing with his own show here and this. And I was monetizing it. And they said, well, how are you doing this? And so I was teaching this little thing about the brand of you, sell the company, sell you, because I believe that content's going to drive more and more of our activity. And as the traditional things fall away, that you're going to have to build a brand of you and build up a community and create your own kind of platform. So in that, they said, I'm getting to their point here in just a second. They, you put a quarter in September, you get to go for the full ride when it comes to it. So they said, Jeff, do you ever listen to those little voices in your head? Yeah. And I said, I stopped listening to them a long time ago. I get the voices, I get nervous, I get all the things that a lot of people, I just say, the hell with it. I'm not going to die. Nothing's going to go wrong. I'm going to speak my piece. And by the way, if I don't do it right, I'll apologize, or I'll, or understand that you just taught me something I didn't know. What's wrong with that? I mean, I've sat in boardrooms of major companies around a board table. And I remember someone put up what they said, and they started talking about Autotrons in a marketing meeting. And I'm the chief marketing officer of the company. And I said, what the hell's an Autotron? And one of my VPs of branding leaned over and said, Mr. Hayzlett, you shouldn't ask that. You're the chief marketing officer. It's probably not appropriate for you to ask that question because it makes you look stupid. I go, I don't give a crap. What the hell's an Autotron? I said, because I'll be stupid if I keep ignoring it and don't know what that means. So the advertising agency explained to me. I said, thank you very much. I appreciate that. It's something I didn't know. Now, of course, I should have known because I went back and Googled it, looked and said it was one of the best basic things. But, I was stepping from a business role into a marketing role. Well, why not be transparent about that? So, yeah, I've always been like this. It's a lot
Very,
easier. I mean, isn't it September? It's hard enough being yourself. Why would you want to be somebody else? Right?
It's too much. I did play
Yeah.
that role. I played that for a while of, presenting
Calm,
a
cool.
certain way. Yeah, like I know my stuff. I'm learning stuff every single day. And I love to hear that no matter how much success a person has, I mean, look at you, all the success that you've had, you still are learning every single day, and you've got to be
Every day.
humble enough to say, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and sometimes you gotta look, let's be clear too. Well, there's days I'm real grumpy. I'm a pain in the, I haven't had my coffee yet, whatever. Don't start, running at me in the morning before I get going. Although this morning my wife got me up at like 6. I had to go for a walk. Okay. That got me going this morning. So now I'm in a better mood. I'm in a much better mood because of it. I was against it. I was totally against it. Okay. So I learned something new. I learned I liked it, and it makes me happier. But, you just got, every once in a while I'm grumpy and I take it out. I yell, I do things I shouldn't do. Right. We all do that. Right. And then I'm also the kind of person that will call the next day and say, hey, Billy, I'm sorry. I was an ass. I was not my best self. And I appreciate you allowing me to not be my best self so I could come back and tell you, I apologize for that. And if I do that again, let's use a safe word or something that you can yell at, you can say. And so that we'll try to do. But yeah, it's okay. They're human. We're human people. Like, like right now, there's a lot of pushing people to one side or another because of all the things that we're facing in this country. And, we need to not push. We need to grab. We need to hold a hand out and pull people in. And we need to do a lot more of that right now. And that across the board, just because of COVID, because of all the stuff that we're seeing with the, race issues that we shouldn't be facing. It's ridiculous that we have to even talk about this stuff, but we need to talk about it because it's so important. Yeah.
Absolutely agree. Well, you've laid a really good foundation of where you are today and kind of those accomplishments that you made. Let's take it back to the earlier days. Did you ever run a company solo?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I start almost every company. I've done that. Yeah, I've done my own PR companies, my own marketing companies, a number of different companies I've done solo, just, and by the way, still go, right now I'm in the middle of a thing, and for a couple of years, I haven't taken any money and done the things you got to do. I clean the toilets. I do whatever you got to do because that's what you should be doing. And by the way, it sets a great example. If I'm cleaning the toilets, there's no job you can't do. But plus I like a clean bathroom too. So there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah. But yeah, you should be willing to do the kinds of things you need to do. And if you look at whether you're starting it up or whether you're going forward and you're scaling in a bigger operation, as entrepreneurs, we start off as a one man, one woman band. I mean, that's it. Then we add devout followers. And by adding devout followers allows us to grab this person, this person, this. But they're not always the most talented people that we should probably have. They're good. I mean, it's like, hey, you can do the books. Okay, do the books. You can add. That's awesome. Oh, good. You're my CFO. And then there becomes a point where you've got to then add the skilled technicians and professionals and those people in your business as you scale, as you make that hockey stick up. By the way, I'm in one of those hockey sticks right now, the hockey stick of growth. And the key is to always be there, but I've always been the handle, so it's nice that I'm in that top piece. But as you look at doing that, you always want to focus in around, and this is where I want to teach you to be a really high level CEO. It always comes down to what are the conditions of satisfaction. So if you think about it, as you start off early on in the business, you want to know about your conditions of satisfaction. Are you willing to go without money for a long time? Are you willing to risk what you got? Are you willing to do this? Are willing to work long hours? Are you willing to forgo family? Because you push on one thing, it's got to give on the other.
That's right.
Those are the key things. But as you go through the next phase, am I willing to take this person who might not be as competent, but they're reliable? They're a jack of all trades, at this next level, Susie's the one. But then when you get to the next level, Susie's not up to that job. So what are the conditions of satisfaction you have to solve here? And that usually is a little bit different as you move through that journey. And so that's one of the key things I think you have to do as a major CEO or a major officer of any company, is your job is to be not the smartest person in the room, because you'll never be the smartest, but your job is to be the most strategic. And so you should always be thinking of the problems we're trying to solve, where we want to go. And while yes, sometimes you got to work in the business, you really have to work on that business. And we all know about that. We hear about that. But to do that, you got to put that strategic cap on. You got to be thinking about how you scale and how you take the team from here to here. And really, you're going to tell them you want them way over here just to settle for here, so you'll always be pushing.
Were you ever involved in developing teams, like doing the hiring, finding the people? Were you ever a part of that?
Yeah. Oh, I'm always involved. In fact, I'm a real believer that, let's say I always, let's say I have a direct report team and they're hiring somebody, I want to interview the people that they're interviewing.
Considering,
yeah, at least one level down. So that's one of my rules. And then if you're at this level, you should have the people above you interview those people too. So you get a broader perspective on it. But, without question, have I made some great hires? Oh, yeah. Have I made some bad hires? Yeah, we all do that. And, the biggest lesson that we always learn in that is we never get rid of those hires fast enough, or at least the bad ones. And you wish you'd have done it right away. So you need to trust yourself a little bit more on that.
Do you still trip up in that process sometimes where, I think this person's really great. They have everything that I'm looking for. They get in there 3 months later, you're like, oh, what have I done?
Yeah, occasionally, but mostly because in the moment I just wanted to fill it or get it done. And so I didn't take my own advice typically. So yeah, so that happens, but it's rare now because I don't want to be the person hiring them. Mm-hmm. I want the person that's working with me, so the head of my sales, the head of my product or services or whatever, I want them to work for them, and that's their hire. And by being their hire, it's their go, no go. So I always can go, back to them and say, well, that's your team member. What do you want to do? And so, I'll give my input. I'll give them, yeah, wow, I think this person's great. Or, oh, that was a stupid move. I don't think you're going to regret that one. If they do it without input, but there are occasionally some of those times I find this person and I say, oh, you got to hire this person. It's like, could I see something there? And those are usually pretty good. If you've been around enough people you hired, even at Kodak, I had 7,000 marketing people who reported up into the marketing organization, 7,500 actually. Wow. And, which is a lot of people, but we had 100,000 people at the time. So it's not as big as you think it is when you look at it from that perspective. So about 150,000 actually. But, I try not to, I don't have it, as you can probably tell, I have a very short attention span. So, it's like I move on. Like one time I hired a VP of brand, and I literally sat in on the interview for 30 seconds, maybe a minute. And I listened to her and I went, oh, she's perfect. And it was in my office. The interview was in my office, and I got up and left. And so I got up and left. She thought it was over. Well, of course, my team knows I'm either gonna love you or kill you. Either way, there's two modes for me. Sure. And they knew all the signs that I didn't give her the shroud of death, that I really, really warmed to her. I knew immediately, and it was maybe 3 minutes. Total, I make it shorter as the story goes along, but it's really I was literally in there for 3 minutes at my desk. There she was. There was my other head of brand. And this was for the consumer job. She was the B2B job. And I'm listening to her and I'm going, I absolutely adore this person. I absolutely adore her. She's perfect. She's going to be great. She's going to be a superstar. And she was, and still is. And I remember her, her name was Leslie. And she said that was the most intimidating interview she'd ever done. She thought she lost the job. And I'd already knew, boom, she's got it. And I gave the sign to the person, then I'm moving on, because I've made that decision. I'm moving on. So
I think I would be intimidated if I had to be interviewed by you. Yeah.
Well, it could be. I try not to do that. I understand. And this is an interesting thing too, September. I'm 6'3", 200 and some pounds. I am gregarious, loud, obnoxious, my
the room.
yeah, I do. I fill rooms. I do without even and I fill screens. And my wife and I share an office here at home. She's now moved to another part of the house because I'm so loud. So I totally get it. Okay. And I'm known to be very direct, almost, even though I'm from South Dakota, right? I'm very New Yorkish, as someone would say. But it's very transparent and very energetic and so forth. So I sometimes have to be careful with that. So I try to match what I can in a room depending on who it is. Like if your demeanor's like this, I'm going to try to match that as much, and not to be I don't know, flippant, or not to be fake. It's to honor you, and it's to make us have that connection, so then we can be ourselves, and then I'll then boom, I turn it on. But if you say something I disagree with, or you say something, I'll bring it up. I'll talk to you about it. I like a good debate,
Oh, yes.
And
yes.
by the way, that's the way Trump is too. I mean, let's be clear, he's batshit, but there's no doubt about that. He's a friend of mine too, and I'd say that. But no, but what he respects? He likes respect when people say, no, no way, that doesn't work. Nobody stand. That's the issue. I bet you right now, like Colin Powell, all these others are saying they don't like him, not voting for him, but he at least respects that. I'll tell you, he respects that.
Sure. All right, let's most of the people inside of CEO space are really solo entrepreneurs, and I want to focus in on the overwhelm of having to wear all of the hats. What was your strategy of getting out of that phase where I know I have to clean the toilets, I have to do everything, the accounting, the marketing, the customer service, everything. What is your strategy? Do you have a set strategy? Is it something that you do, that you rely on consistently when you're in that position? How do you move out of that to where you can start hiring team members and people helping you?
Yeah, I look for things or people, in this case, people who are most alike. Which some people look for people that will complement them. I look for other people like me, so that I can start to infuse the culture that this is how we're going to be. Because you're going to eventually hire lots of captains of no, lots of obstructionists, people who say it's not in the budget, it's not this. You need some people with you that from sheer energy alone carries the momentum through. So I tend to almost always focus on sales, and that sales is the most important piece of it, because if you're selling, it makes up for a lot of bad sense. All right. So I'm always looking for that typically first. And then I start looking at the other things I can do. Now, one of the other things I think that smart CEOs do, or smart entrepreneurs do, is we also look for, and I'll use this phrase from Dan Burris because he taught it to me. I didn't know that's what I was doing, but it's brilliant. X is a service. So what is it that I can offload as a service to somebody else, and I can decide to bring it back in later on? And a lot of us old codgers, older guys like myself, or women who have been in the business for a long time, we think we have to do it ourselves. We think we have to hire it ourselves. Well, now we're learning fleet of foot that we can outsource a lot of that. And so that's one of the big things that I've been doing a lot more of in the last couple of years, and it's a much smarter move. But I tend to focus first on the sales to help me, because if you're the CEO, especially of the startup, you're selling it all.
Yes.
And you need to sell it all. Okay. And you need to know that job and that thing. And you need to know how Salesforce works, or whatever the CRM system is, because later when you add somebody else, you need to know whether they're telling you the truth or not, and whether it's getting done. But you're also maybe, knitting the product, and then you're shipping the product. Well, then you can start to replace those by doing different things, as you get better at it.
Sure. One of the strategies I really rely on is systematizing. It's where I'm able to get geeky. I love to build systems. It's one of my favorite things to do. And I love teaching it. I just learned recently, I've started teaching it to groups. I've been teaching it one-on-one to people and I've enjoyed it, but opening it up to groups has really taken it to another level of getting their
Good.
interaction and hearing their ahas. It just feels so good to be able to open people's mind up like that. So systematizing is a really strong strategy that I really rely on a lot.
Yeah, I'm a process person. I like process. And I just got to a meeting with my product marketing team, and one of the requests was, this is different than the last one I looked at. And I told the head of product marketing, don't do that. He goes, well, it's the same stuff. Yeah, but I have to look at two different things. I want to look at the same kind of agenda, the same kind of chart, so I can find the things without trying to figure out. I want to do it very quickly. So yeah, I like processes and systems. I love that. And I think that the more you can do of that, of step and repeat, that make your life easier. And then these items then start going on what you'd call a consent calendar. Like I don't have to look at them, you know, because they're an autopilot for me. Now I just focus on these things.
But I think that applies in branding too, when we look at branding, because it can get boring. You're doing the same style, but the customer, your audience requires that consistency. So I think that's another element for business owners to be mindful of. Well, I want to mix it up. I'm tired of doing the same thing over and over, but they need to realize their audience needs to see that consistency.
Totally. See, and by the way, and it's not you're trying to satisfy, it's the customer.
That's
so
right.
If you keep in mind the customer, and here's the key word for all of you that are watching, listening in right now. Well, what's brand? What's brand? All right, a brand is something that we always put on a cow and occasionally a horse. That's where the word came from. It came from cowboys like me that identified their livestock with a brand, with a logo. You know, it's basically the identification of ownership on the side of a bovine. That's what it really means. And then it got transferred to a logo, which then got transferred in this word brand. And everybody thinks, well, my brand is my brand. Your brand is nothing but a promise delivered. And so that's what you should be focused on, is what's my promise delivered. And then the things that most people think of as a brand in terms of its color, its look, its feel, those are all attributes that you take a look at. So focus in on what's the promise delivered. And so then you'll spend less time changing your frickin' logo all the time, changing your website all the time and all that other crap, because nobody cares, all right? Yeah, they really care about what am I getting and how am I treated and what's the value of that product, you know, in terms of its quality or deliverability, reliability.
I like to think about brand. I do see those two parts. It is the expression of what's the value that's being delivered. And on the back side of that, I like to think of a brand as, you know, when you look at the logo and the color and the voice, all of the pieces that go into it, it's really, what is the expression of this entity? When we look at a human being, we're an entity. I have a particular style. There's a particular tone to my voice, the way that I communicate. And a brand needs to reflect those same things. And really delivering. And I think starting on that piece of what is the value that's being delivered, having a clear understanding of what problem do you solve, who do you solve it for, is really important in the messaging. Now you're coming in from the marketing world. What are some key elements that you find that needs to remain consistent in the marketing arena when a company's
That's a great question and a great thought that most people don't put at the forefront. And so what you were talking about before was that narrative or story. What's the brand story or narrative? And you need to have that. So, but it really leads to what is the pain we're solving? And the more pain that's there, the more value. Or what is the aspiration that we're helping them get to, that make them feel, right? So those are two key elements that you want to have at the forefront. And then I'm going to layer over another piece, which a lot of people forget. So if we're solving this pain, or we're trying to take them to another level of admiration, aspiration, inspiration, motivation, whatever that is, in terms of giving them this feeling, what you have to lay over that is what's the behavior of the customer. Because a lot of times what we try to do is we've created this great thing. I got this great product. I got this great new product. And instead of writing this hand, what they usually do, it's better with this hand. Well, they don't write with this hand, okay? You freaking idiot. So you're trying to change behavior, and I'm just gonna keep putting it back in the other hand, and it doesn't work because it only works in this hand. Well, while you've created the greatest product in the world, you haven't captured customer behavior. And that's where a lot of marketers and a lot of businesses fail, is they talk themselves into a good narrative. They talk themselves into a good story, and they haven't spent the time to find out what's the real behavior of the pain or the aspiration they're trying to solve. And if you spend more time on that, oh, game, set, match. And so it's important for you to really get out. I mean, because, we'll go around and tell our mothers about it. We'll tell our sisters, you'll tell our brothers, and they'll all love it, right? Because they think everything. So maybe your brother or sister, they probably think it's pretty stupid. But your mother will tell you it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. And honey, you should keep doing this. And it's probably the worst people you should talk to. You should really get out there and watch and see how people do it. And if you do that, then you can get it. You can get it pretty quick.
But can't the creator also start with their own experience and looking at themselves? I mean, I hear a lot of people that say, take Sherry Tree, for example, with bank code, that she goes, look, I was having a hard time with my sales. I needed a system. I had to figure out what I was doing in sales to make me reach my goals so that I could be successful. And I created this system, and it was working so good for me, I started sharing it with other people. So I think as the creator of the solution, to take a look, you're the expert understands the problem. The expert understands the problem. What problem do you solve? What problem do you have? How did you solve it? What did you feel? What was that internal conversation that you were having with yourself? What was showing up in your life during that time? And really start to dissect who you were when you were at the peak of your problem before you made the solution. So, because what I'm hearing you say is in that marketing piece, it's yes, you need to speak to the problem, but you can also speak to what people aspire to be. Yeah. But at some level, how do you make the connection with the customer that you are the solution in that?
Well, that's the key thing. So take that solution, now go out and test it and see if you can sell it. Will the dog, there's an old saying in marketing, will the dog eat the dog food? You made a great dog food, but will the dog eat it? More importantly, will 10 dogs eat it? More importantly, we're 10,000 or 10 million or 100 million. And that becomes the real question for you. All right. And then it becomes the game of how I market it, the way I get it out, and so forth. So while it's great to create a great idea, an idea without implementation is just air. Right. So while it's great for you, now you just need to see if what I solved, and that was a great example with Banknote, she saw something, fixed it for her, then started showing it to others who became devout followers as part of the community. And then they, of course, told other people, and then it starts to scale. So now you know you got something, you really got something, but you're going to have to test that, figure that out. And I tell entrepreneurs, one of the best things you do is get out there and sell it yourself. The more you take that, whatever it is, and you show them, hey, you can't sign a contract without this. You can't make money without this. Let me tell you what, the whatever it might be, that's going to be the real test for you.
All right. So if you're out there selling it, and I understand the importance of that, I mean, to even understand the conversation that a customer is going to have with you, the objections that they're going to throw up, the challenges that they'll bring up in conversation, their pushback, all of that, it comes into play. Can you take those elements that you learn in the selling process and apply it into a marketing strategy?
Heck yeah. In fact, you should turn those negatives into benefits, right? So you want to be able to flip all of the negatives and objections that these people come and turn those into what are the positives, again, of what you're trying to solve. And you need to anticipate that, through a lot of exercises and sometimes trial and tribulation, because sometimes you don't know about those until, they ask you, right? And you might blow it. You might blow the answer. You might not know the answer, but then you got to figure that out. And so again, you're going to have to look at all of those things, but by all means, you should put that into the program, and you should look at those things that they're pointing out, because if they're asking you that question, then something is a fundamental, it's fundamental to why they're asking it, right? So it's a need of some kind, right? Because I don't think anyone just objects to everything, right? They want things cheaper. They want things better. They want things quicker. They want things smarter. They want things faster. They want things, hotter, whatever, And so when they ask you about those kinds of negative things or things that they say are limitations, then you need to find the opposite of that. I once had a company that Benny Landa is the guy's name, and he ended up selling his company for $250 million to HP years ago. And he had a product called an Indigo. It was an Indigo. It was a printer. And this printer was so bad when it was first launched, you had to buy 2 of them. Now, these printers were commercial printing operations. You not only had to buy 2, you had to take a guy from Israel, an Israeli engineer, who lived in the plant for like 3 to 6 months, because he would have to show you, or she would have to show you, it was mostly he, would have to show you what went wrong and fix it and make sure that the machines kept going, because when one was down, then they started the other one. And when that one went down, they started this one up. And so that's how they got it going. So, so basically you took 2 machines in Israeli in order to fulfill what you needed to have. Well, why did they do that? Because this machine was unreliable. That's why. But yet they turned it into a positive and said, not only give you 1, we're going to give you 2, plus we're going to give you an engineer, and he had the audacity. And I can remember when he unveiled the product, God bless him. I remember sitting in, I think it was Seabit or somewhere, no, maybe somewhere in Europe. And I swear to God, when they announced that printer, there was somebody inside hand feeding the sheets of paper out the thing. That's how shaky that product was at the time. So, you can, and then look at what he did. He built the company up, and it might have been $2 billion. I think it was $250 million that he sold it for, but good for him. And now it's one of it's HP's, one of HP's biggest success stories.
That's crazy. All right, I got one more question on marketing, and then I want to shift gears. There's a lot of wordy people out there.
Oh yeah.
To get their point across, like, oh, and they're excited about their product, and they're going to tell you about the product until the cows come home, but it's just too much content overload. How do you avoid that? If you're not a wordsmith and you're a one-man show, and you know that you need to start putting some marketing elements in piece, if you're not outsourcing it and there's some things that you're doing in-house, how do you craft a language? Like, is there an exercise that you do? Is this a process that you practice? How do you avoid that lengthy explanation of the benefits?
All right, here's the deal. And I did this years ago. You need to practice the Moses rule. You know how everybody comes to you September and they bring you like 40-page PowerPoint presentations, and it's so wordy and it's this and this and this? Nope. If Moses can do it in 2 PowerPoint slides of 5 bullet points each, and he had something much more difficult to sell called the 10 Commandments, you can do it with a lot less words. So the way I used to have people when they would come and pitch me is, you got to practice the Moses rule. And they said, what's that? I said, you get 2 PowerPoint slides, no more than 7 words per line, only 5 bullet points on each slide. That's it. That's all you get. If you can't sell me that, you got nothing to sell. It's just like the elevator pitch. And I call the elevator pitch the following. I call it the 118. Oh, what's the 118? 118 seconds. See, the average attention of an adult for you or I is 8 seconds. I know that to be true because I looked it up on the internet, okay? So you got 8 seconds to hook me, to say something that's so provocative, that says something, I want to pay attention to what you've got, and you get what you call, in sales parlance, the lean-in factor, where I lean in and I want to hear it. And we've all said something like that, where someone said, wait, and they lean in, or stop the elevator, right? And then, so that's 8 seconds. And then you got 110 seconds, which is the average length of an elevator ride in New York City. From the time you press the button, wait for the doors to open, you get on, you either ride up or ride down and get off, okay? So you got 110 seconds to then convince me, to tell me the value of what you got. And don't tell me you work with this company, this company, this, I don't care. Talk to me about my value. So what's your hook? What's the one provocative statement that sets you apart from everybody else? Okay. And then what's the value that you bring? And that's what you should focus on. So focus in on that elevator pitch, focus in on just 2 slides of what it is, the essence of who you are. And if you can do that, you get it down. You really get it down. And then I encourage you to, hire. bring on somebody, create a board of advisors if you need be, who brings in people who are really good at what they do. You know, I was talking to Chad Burnmeister yesterday. He runs a company called ScaleX.ai, and it's an AI system for getting appointments and, you know, scaling your sales. And I was talking to him on my podcast show, which you recently did as well. I was talking to him on All Business, right? It's on C-Suite Radio. And I said to him, I said, AI's got some negative. How do you get around that? That it's a robot, that it's, you know, cyberborgs, it's all this, you know, it's math, and how can you personalize it? Well, he came up with ScaleXI, delightfully human. Wow. He just killed the argument. So what I would have attacked him on in terms of, oh, it's too, you know, mathematic, it's too this, it's too that, he showed that no, our system is delightfully human. I thought, that's freaking brilliant. That's brilliant. So that's how you can do it. You can do it every day.
All right, Jeffrey, how do you hold yourself accountable at this level?
Yeah, you've got to have good people. You got to have good people around you, right? You've got to have really good people. And I think you have to be really grounded in who you are, right? Mm-hmm. It's hard enough being someone else. Why would you, it's hard enough being yourself. Why would you want to be somebody else? So really get clear about who you are and get, cut the crap, get through that. And then what are your conditions of satisfaction? And then work with other people about what those promises are for each of the people. And so, a good friend of mine passed many years ago, Stephen Covey, and he wrote 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. And in the book, by the way, read the book rather than like watch one of his speeches, even though he's passed, is the book's much better read than watching him speak. But he used to talk about 4 things. You need spirituality, you need family, you need business people, and you need friends. So find the balance in those things to hold the promises of what you've got, and that'll help you keep in check. And you've got to keep in check, at a higher level, because everybody tells you yes. Imagine the people telling yes to Trump. That's the reason why we got the problems we got, right? Seriously, that's the reason. Somebody didn't do it when he was a kid, so obviously it became a problem when he was an adult. So, everything we learn in kindergarten. Well, if you go to Sunday school, if you got good friends, like Mom says, don't hang around those kids. You got good family, and you go to church on Sunday. That's pretty good. That balances you in life. So I kind of look at it like that, and that's what you have to do. And you've got to have good people who say no to you. And I've got that. I've got good people who work. My partner, half the time he calls me and he goes, "You're not going to want to hear this." That's how most of the calls start off, which is okay. Or my son, who works in the business, he's, "Dad, I need to talk to you about this," and he stands up against me about certain things. Or other executives like Trisha and others. And I got a great spouse in Tammy, who just doesn't put up with crap. So, and she's 5'1", about 105 pounds, and I'm scared to death. Please, September, help me, please help me. I'm scared. I'm very scared.
Yeah, mighty things come in small packages, Jeffrey. Yeah. Now, do you have a coach? Do you work with?
I have lots of coaches. I don't have a formal coaching. I don't have formal coaches, but I have lots of people inside of our C-suite now. I got hundreds of them, and they coach me every day because I have conversations all the time. And so I'm a hunter. I love to hunt and be outdoors. And so one of the things that I'm always looking for things. I'm always looking. But I live in a constant state of awareness I'm not aware of what I'm not aware of. And that's the way I try to. I don't try to say, "Oh, this is a pen." "Oh, is it? Oh, is it? I don't know." Maybe it's a liquid pencil. I don't know. And I kind of like that. I'm kind of like one of those people. So I kind of look at it like that, like, and I don't care who the person is across from me. Well, what can I learn from them? How cool would this be if they teach me the secret to relativity, or they teach me this, or whatever it might be? And so I kind of like look at everybody that's around you can teach you something, whether it's your grandbabies or your grandfather, or a customer, and that's kind of, you just got to be okay with that. I'm okay with that.
Beautiful. Jeffrey, I have really enjoyed getting to know you. Thank you so much for entertaining my questions, all my questions that I ask.
It went fast. We got to do this again. Well,
Yes.
we're going to. We'll do it again because
Yep.
I'm going to be with your whole team, the CEO space. And we said this, for years we've known each other but haven't known each other, and I'm so glad that we've been taking the time to make this happen.
Likewise. Thank you.